Greetings. Welcome back to Ministry Monday. This is Carlton Coon. Let me talk with you about when the watch doesn't go tick. Now, I'd love for you to share this if you think it's relevant or could be beneficial to your peers. And if you'd post comments or questions or suggestions. And this particular session, I think, really should receive response because we need some collective thought about the topic that I'm going to address today. But it also increases the significance of this on YouTube and Facebook if you post. Now, at the end of this Ministry Monday, I'm going to be reminding you of a limited time offer of some of my stuff. When the watch doesn't go tick. If memory serves, it was Joel Barker who wrote a book regarding the future. And in order to gain perspective regarding the future, he included what happened when there was not a proper adjustment to match the times and also the opportunities. And one of his best illustrations was regarding the Swiss Federation of Watchmakers and how they responded to the invention of the electric watch. Well, when the electronic watch was first invented and the idea was advanced that you could make a timepiece with electronics, the Swiss had 90% of the world's watch market. But when this idea came out in the 1950s and the Swiss learned that electronic watches could be made and they could be manufactured much less expensively than the mechanical version. And of course, all of this was absolutely non-traditional to what the Swiss watchmakers were used to doing. Everything that they'd ever built had wheels and springs and sprockets and the inner workings were there, clearly visible for any to see, and that's what was required to make a watch. So despite the research, the Swiss rejected the idea of the electric watch. You see, to them, an electronic watch, did not act like a real watch. A real watch had the little second hand that kind of jumped as it moved, and it would also go tick, tick, tick. And in their thinking, they kind of asked the question, who would want a watch that doesn't go tick, tick, tick? So what's the outcome of all of that? Well, in 2020, the Swiss watchmakers have a tiny percentage of the world's watch market. Their watches still go tick, tick, tick. Their watches are expensive, so expensive that the average person likely cannot afford such. The result was because that the Swiss Watchmakers Federation did not recognize and seize a moment of change, so someone else grabbed it. I spend some time thinking about future church because I have some perspective on the past. The functional operation of the church and its approach to ministry has changed a lot since 1980. As an evangelist, in 1980, I preached revivals that lasted 7 weeks. As a pastor, I've never had a revival that went more than 2 weeks and seldom have anything more than just a couple of nights. To have music in 1980, you needed a piano, an organ, and a bass guitar, and maybe some drums. But today, one person at a keyboard can produce all of those sounds simultaneously, and in many instances, them sound better than the other might have sounded. How I deal with converts has changed. The change is because that the people we're reaching now have no perspective on godly living whatsoever. So we're having to be more patient. It's taking time for people to understand about living a godly lifestyle. Brethren, we are shooting at a moving target. Now, for the past few weeks, we have lived in a world where the church didn't go tick, tick, tick. Nothing, I mean nothing, has been normal. But it's interesting that within the context of our calling, these alternate methods that we have been forced to use have proved to be effective. And somebody will say, well, what do you mean the context of our calling? And this is important. This is important that every young preacher get. It's important that every elder clearly understand this. Paul's declaration in Romans 10 regarding the call of God on my life and yours is focused on one thing. Paul asks, how shall they hear without a preacher? Who? Those who have not heard. My mandate as a preacher is to preach to those who have not heard. Now, let me create just a little bit of discomfort for all of us. To what degree is our tick, the yearning to be back in the normal place doing normal things? And I certainly desire to be back with the people of God. How much is it that the tick is the comfort zone of edifying, encouraging, teaching, and cheerleading those who are long since converted? By contrast, how miserable will I get if I go 2 weeks without having a lost person to preach to? What's happened in the last few weeks is each Sunday and during a daily live teaching webcast that is really doctrinal, but it talks about Jesus is, thousands of people, most of them lost, have listened in. Folks, that's a watch that does not go tick, tick, tick. But it works for what I'm mandated to do. Future church, have you ever thought about how Simon, Peter, and Paul would have used Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook? I can assure you of one thing. They would aggressively use it for evangelism and disciple making, and then not use their post to contend about whether the top button of my shirt needed to be buttoned or could be left unbuttoned. I'm committed to not being enamored with the tick of church like we did it in 2000 or even like we're doing it in 2020. We need to be the ones others are having to catch up to. As I've taught daily online, the response has come from Springfield. We boost whatever's being done to an audience within 15 miles of the church. But it's also from around the world. But it doesn't go tick because that audience of thousands is not sitting out in a linear fashion for me to look at. If we're not careful, we're going to join the Swiss watchmakers in losing the future while we attempt to preserve the past. Now, it's not that in any transition we lose the gospel. Those who bought a cheap electronic Casio watch did not lose the ability to tell time. Here was the deal for the Swiss. They forgot what business they were in. They should have seen themselves as providing a tool to help people know what time it was. Instead, they became interested in preserving the way things had always been done. I want to pose a question. Why could the Swiss not have done both? Continue manufacturing the mechanical, expensive watches with all the moving parts, preserving the tick, and at the same time producing electronic watches that soon would have most of the world's market. It really didn't have to be either or. It could have been an and. But mark it down. Listen to me. That which is most easily accessed will be where the market share goes. Now, I've got some silver in this hair, so let me express my concern. If we settle back, gentlemen, to our comfortable tick, tick, tick of the old norm and do not put extensive effort, intentional effort, into putting a quality product out there online that teaches and preaches the gospel, we will have lost a moment. And it's a moment that will never come back. The Swiss lost tomorrow on the basis of preserving yesterday. My watch does not go tick. Will my church? Now, what I'd like from you in provoking this thought regarding future church is I would like for you to share your thoughts with me about what you envision future church looking like in 2040, 2050, and beyond, if the Lord tarries and delays his coming. And then, if you will, I'd like for you to think about what we have to do now to take hold of tomorrow. Now, I said there would be a couple of announcements. Due to some coronavirus cancellations of meetings, I have a huge inventory of stuff in our stock room, and it's a third off. Everything that we have is a third off for any purchase of more than $20. It's christianchurchgrowth.com, and it'll be connected with this post. And we do provide free shipping within the USA. So everything in the arsenal is a third off, and the discount comes when you check out. It's a good time to load up on some of the resources if you're needing quite a bit of quantity of stuff, like the 10 book or Take Root, Bear Fruit, Fitly Frame, any of that. I would be glad to work with you and negotiate something perhaps even beyond a third. God bless you. Appreciate you. Appreciate those in the work of God. Don't get enamored with the church going tick, tick, tick.